Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a new episode of Chatting with Lady C. Hello, Mum, how are you?
I'm all right, thank you, honey. And how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good, I'm glad to see it.
Alright, so for our first question today is from Belle Wolf. Love from New York City. Lady C, do you believe in Meghan's miscarriage story? In July, she was doing Zoom speeches, posting whatever was on her little mind, and was photographed in Beverly Hills in a cheap dress. 5 months later, we read a childish article about her kissing Harry's clammy hands. Clammy? Realizing was wet from both their tears, humming a lullaby on her way down to the floor while clutching her baby. Yeah, we all do that. And of course, she was busy being a loving, hands-on mother changing a diaper, right? When the cramp jostled her body. Lady C, who has the stomach for such drivel. Are you okay, Harry? Yes, I am sure all that happened, right? As Kate loses Lupo, this woman is competitive to point of madness. Everyone giving her sympathy is unbelievable. We now take her at her word. Your opinion?
Well, several people, of course, have commented on the fact that Meghan's uh, scenario is very reminiscent of Julia Roberts in Steel Magnolias when she discovers that her kidney is failing and she's going to die. I saw Steel Magnolias and it was a very touching movie. Uh, I think we have got so many comments with so many good questions that I think I'd like to take them, at least some of them, one by one and answer them. But I do find it a tad incredible that any woman in pain would sink to the floor with the baby in her arms and decide to sing a lullaby. I think it is not a credible scenario. I think it's truly unbelievable, and I truly don't believe it. I think it's hammed up, it's dramatic. Uh, yes, I also note that this announcement was made 5 months later, when she didn't take one break for one nanosecond to draw breath from the bombardment of videos to which the world was subjected, while she is supposed to have been losing the baby and have then lost the baby. Yes, it's also stepping on Catherine and William and their children's territory, because yet again, uh, the Markles have managed to find a way of trumping the Cambridges, so that every single time something happens, like the family has lost their beloved dog, they then have to very insensitively, whether she did indeed have a miscarriage or not, why announce it right after uh, stepping on, raining really, on the Cambridge's parade? There is a mad competitive element to the way their announcements are delivered that is seriously discomforting. When I was young and living in New York, the New York Times was a serious newspaper and it dealt with serious issues. It did not give platforms to woke actresses to uh, pontificate the way she has been doing. I think if she was pregnant and if she lost the baby, it's very sad. And I think everybody would sympathize with her. But I, for one, am very willing to respect her privacy. They moved to America for privacy. They want their privacy. Stop violating it. That's my opinion. What do you think?
Oh, I think if it's something that really happened, it is very sad. But even if it did happen, why is she making such a big deal about it?
And right now, well, it's obviously to rain on the Cambridge's parade is certainly one thing. But let's go on to the next question.
I mean, like, there's miscarriages out there, and I'm telling you right now, women don't go about boasting about it, and especially don't go boasting about it in the whole world.
That's right. That's
So
right.
it's, I think it's something disgusting what she's doing as well as a human being, because it's a very personal, private matter.
I agree with you.
So
I agree with you. I agree with you. And I think many people do. I think it is supremely distasteful that she would have violated her own privacy the way she did. But this
just
is a
to
woman.
seek attention.
Yeah, just to seek attention. But this is a woman who has shared the processes of elimination bodily that she engaged in Africa, to the admiration of the dolt to whom she's married, and is now sharing other very deeply personal matters. It is distasteful.
So for our next question today is from Sharon Fogg. Interesting, the miscarriage story comes out at the same time Eminem's Lying in Exposed.
Yes, that's another coincidence. This has followed hard on the heels of Meghan having to adjust her witness statement to cover for the lie that she plainly told when she asserted that they had had no input into funding freedom and finding freebies. So this distraction, this playing upon the heartstrings of the public, is very conveniently timed. And I think it's a very cynical exercise in manipulation. And I, for one, really bitterly resent being manipulated, and especially in such a flagrant way.
Sorry. So you think that she's doing the second story to get everybody off the first story?
Yes, and also
Okay, yeah.
two things. It's a distraction
Yeah,
technique.
exactly, yeah.
It's a distraction technique to garner her sympathy. Because nobody likes a liar, but everybody's going to be sad at somebody who's lost a baby.
Or something dramatic will happen.
Yeah, and so it not only steps and rains on the Cambridge's parade, but it and the loss of their beloved dog, but it also at the same time distracts from the fact that she was caught lying and she's had to change her story.
Lady C, do you foresee Meghan overstepping her already outrageous antique to finally self-destruct?
Yes, well, Meghan's antics are completely outrageous. And I would not be surprised if she self-destructs. I really do not. I think she has been self-destructing ever since she arrived on the scene and couldn't maintain the demure, I'm here to be a part of the royal family facade that she did quite well during the engagement and in the early days of the marriage. And yeah, I think since then she has been self-destructing, at least where the British people are concerned. We need to remember that Meghan's not interested in Britain. Meghan is interested in America. Meghan's game and game plan is all directed at Americans. And if Meghan can get enough supporters, and I point this out in my book, if she can succeed in getting enough people backing her and supporting her and giving her the attention she needs and the support she needs and the platform she needs, she will regard herself as being a success. And she will not like the fact that people see through her, and she won't like the fact that other people are wise to what she is about and that they actually completely deplore what she's about. She is aiming for her market and bugger everybody else. So.
All right. So for our next one is from Kay Hayes. If Meghan had a miscarriage, that's too bad, but why is she always so overly dramatic? Everything concerning these two is over the top. The announcements were strictly for attention. Bad PR strikes again.
I don't think I could have said it better. I really don't think I could have said it better. It's everything is over the top, don't you think?
Always. Always.
It's completely unconvincing. And I mean, I know this from Mummy. People who are professional hams, even when they're being sincere, they lose your sympathy because even then they can't just be natural. It has to be the greatest thing, the greatest tragedy that ever took place happened to me today. What happened? I got up on the wrong side of the bed. Yeah, I mean, I think if she really did have a miscarriage, I think people would sympathize with her, but they would certainly sympathize. They would have sympathized a lot more had she either let it get out naturally instead of yet again platforming herself. I'm a platformer. Oh, my lady's platform. It's distasteful.
So for our next question today is from Sus Hannah. Hi, did people really fall for it? Did none of the readers of the New York Times, especially those who have experienced the loss of a pregnancy, notice that her account is not realistic in any way? That most women are not hospitalized after a miscarriage, and above all, that is California in July 2020, no one was allowed visitors to their hospital's bedside, and if they were able to use Harry's white privilege to bypass the rules, how is it that Harry was not wearing gloves on his clammy, tear-soaked hands?
Well, I mean, there is a ridiculous and farcical element to this whole thing, isn't there? But there's also underlying it a very serious and very disturbing element, which is that Meghan has come up with a scenario that if it is believed, or if it is believable, shows that they breached absolutely every rule, that they were granted privileges that when you stop to think of it, and this is really very serious, babies have died without their parents being able to see them. People have died without their loved ones. Couples who have been married for 70 years have died without being able to say goodbye to each other. People have been sick, sometimes for months. Handicapped people, disabled people, without being able to be seen by their loved ones. And this woman is flagrantly and proudly announcing to the world that their tragedy is so much greater than everything else, that they were absolved of all of the rules. I mean, I think it is an exercise in vulgarity, the like of which I have seldom seen, and is truly offensive. Because I've met people, because in my everyday life, people come up to me and speak to me. And I've met people locally who've had loved ones dying, or they have loved ones in care homes that they've not been able, or in hospitals that they've not been able to see for months throughout the whole of the epidemic. And at the height of it, Harry is able to, and why is she taken to the hospital in any event? You know, it's, and when was she taken to the hospital? I mean, between which broadcast? And, you know, and she can't have been very pregnant, because the last time, when she was 4 months pregnant, she was beyond out to hair. And this time she's been as flat as a pancake. So if she was a few weeks pregnant, or even 2 or 3 months pregnant, there would have been no need for her to be taken to the hospital. The whole thing is just shocking. It is shockingly distasteful, and it abuses her position. It abuses his position. It is a slap in the face of ordinary people who are law-abiding all over the world. I mean, can you imagine if you had been dying of COVID, I wouldn't have been able to go and say goodbye to you. And then I'm to sit down and read this rubbish from this woman who is replicating a scene out of Steel Magnolias. If she had the miscarriage, I'm pretty damn sure it didn't go the way she says it went. You know, the nonsense about her as she falls to the ground holding the baby. I can tell you something. A baby that's well over a year old, in fact, and he's a big boy, there is no way, and because I've had 2 children of that age, as you know, you being one of them, and you cannot hold a baby of that age as you are in pain and going down onto the ground. And then you're going to sing a lullaby. Hush, hush, sweet Charlotte. Oh, sorry. Hush, hush, sweet Archie. Mummy's going to have a baby, but not right now. Farcical. It's really offensive. It's really offensive.
So for our next question today is from Charlotte Q. When have there ever been stigma attached to miscarriage? I had one, and a few of my friends have had them. They actually fairly common. One of my friends very sadly endured a stillbirth. In my experience, there's never been stigma attached to it. We were all extremely open about it, and people were very kind. The way that article was written was pure theatrics. Sinking to the floor, holding Archie and humming a nursery rhyme to keep them both calm. I was holding my first child while losing my second. Who even speaks like that?
Well, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I don't think anybody speaks like that who is sincere and has been through it. Do you?
Well, that's where we come back to what we first said at the very beginning of the video.
Yes.
Nobody, it's privacy, it's private life. Like, these ladies have probably said it between themselves, but they're friends. They haven't gone out and told it to the whole world.
But you see, they don't have ambitions to be the most famous woman on earth, nor do they have political ambitions.
No, they just want to help out each other.
That's right. That's right. Meghan jumps on every bandwagon that is going and uses everything that she can, whether actual or invented, to further her cause and fulfill her agenda. I find it deeply disturbing. I think this is an actual abomination that she could have used this the way she has used it. And you know, I'm one of the few public figures whose privacy has been violated to the extent it was. And I can tell you something. People whose privacy matters to them do not behave the way she does. This is a woman who will use anything and everything to gain attention. She's not interested in privacy. She is interested in self-promotion and exploiting a putative miscarriage for not only attention, but laying the ground, steal their attention and advance your case politically, bringing in all sorts of political issues as well. It's sick, in my opinion. It's sick. I think it's sick and I find it disgusting. Next question.
So for our next question today is from Mary Shield. One more question from me is, why would Meghan, when pregnant, go out to do service work in a bakery which is enclosed and expose herself to the COVID-19 infection? It's so normal to lose a baby a few days later, host a 20,000K 3-day birthday feast, Zoom and merch non-stop, and do business deals and crap and new cosmetic work done, and then 5 months later to moan about it. She said she hummed a cheerful tune as she fell to the ground with Archie in her arms after she suffered a sharp pain, and she realized she would most probably lose the baby. Also, California was in lockdown, and many medical people said Harry would not be allowed with her in the hospital room, which was painted white and cold. Another lie, just unreal. The woman is unbelievable. Apparently all the hospitals are painted in pastel colours or wallpapered.
Well, that is a fascinating series of questions. If Meghan had really been pregnant and she was exposing herself to the dangers of catching COVID, it says very much about where her priorities lie and how irresponsible she is. That's the first thing. So I agree with that. The problem with the Meghans of this world, and I know this again, I'll go back to Meghan, this whole scenario takes me back to so many of the scenarios that my mother used to set up, where everybody was supposed to sympathize and everybody was supposed, oh, you poor darling, aren't you brave and wonderful, and oh, you're the most marvelous person that God put on this earth, and oh gosh, you're deserving of admiration and adoration, and aren't you just the most special thing that God has ever created? I mean, it's like plugging in to the emotional grid and sucking it dry, and I'm afraid I don't buy it. I really don't buy it. I think if she was pregnant, I think it's a shocking disgrace that she has exploited it the way she has. I have all sympathy for her having lost the baby. I have absolutely none for her in the way she's gone about it. I deplore it entirely. Also, are we really to believe that this mattered so greatly to her that she then, having been hospitalized in a situation which really doesn't seem, again, I go back to what I said earlier, credible. I don't know the state of all hospital rooms in America, but I have checked it out with doctors I do know in America, and including with an obstetrician. And it would be absolutely the height of irresponsibility during COVID, at the height of COVID, for a doctor to ask a woman who had lost a baby in the first trimester of pregnancy, which is clearly when it must have been lost if it existed at all, to go into a hospital. Completely, none of it adds up. Now, I'm not saying that it didn't happen, And I'm not saying for legal reasons that she wasn't advised to go into the hospital. And I'm not saying, again, for legal reasons, that she wasn't hugely pregnant as she was planting flowers to Diana and distributing parcels to people who might and might not have COVID, showing how wonderful she was. What I am saying is, if any of this did happen, it shouldn't have happened. The medical advice was completely irresponsible. You know, as many people have been at pains to say, losing babies is a very natural thing. It's obviously a sad thing when it happens. But as people have been at pains to point out as well, Meghan is very pro-abortion. And losing a baby in the first few months is more notional than actual. And also, losing a baby in the first few months of pregnancy is nature's way of terminating, shall we say, inexact fetuses. So I'm not saying anybody would be jubilant, but none of it adds up. Does it add up to you?
Not really.
It doesn't, does it? It doesn't. And I tell you, what really has astonished me is some of the reports from some of the journalists who have been at great pains to say how brave Meghan has been. Well, she hasn't been brave. She's been vulgar. And, you know, to say that she has had to dispel the shame and the stigma where miscarriage is concerned. There's never been shame and there's never been stigma where miscarriage was concerned. And it's just a load of cod's wallop. And I think on that note, I should say, I just find it really disturbing that we, the public, are being abused the way we are being abused by Meghan Markle, and that newspapers like the New York Times, which are supposed to be responsible, are giving her a platform to abuse us, the public, with scenarios that only an idiot would think were credible, and to make attachments to what is a perfectly ordinary situation and hype it up into some great tragedy for extraneous and doubtless financial and worldly purposes. I, for one, am sick to my back teeth of the abuse to which Meghan Markle subjects the public. I find her boring. I find the whole thing distasteful. And let's now watch this space and see how she manages to spin it, because she is becoming the royal family's answer to Tony Blair. Let's spin, spin, spin at all times. Spin, spin, spin. Nothing can be treated with the objectivity, the sensitivity, or the decency that it warrants without being blown out of all proportion. I find the whole thing just distasteful. What do you think?
Well, like you said a little bit earlier, is like if her medical advice is really bad, she shouldn't be doing all this stuff or stress on herself, also trying to get the virus, just not very good. So what she's doing is also putting herself in harm, is not very smart as well.
No. But you see, she has a PR team that she has instructed that there need to be 3 big stories about her every week. And I, for one, am beginning to bitterly resent the grabs at my attention. And I'm sure that I represent one. I am sure that I am but one of millions who feel the same way. Of course, the likelihood is that there are an approaching or an equal number, or even a superior number, who feel otherwise. Because let's not forget that the world is full of sensible and decent people. It's also filled with ghouls and fools and sensationalists who will always opt for the lowest common denominator.
So our last question today is from a no name. So what do you think about Eugenie and Jack taking over Frogmore Cottage from Harry and Meghan?
Huh? Well, I think there's a whole heap more to that story than meets the eye. I would prefer not to comment upon it at this stage. You know, the beauty of writing a book is you get information, and there's a huge gap between when you receive the information and when the book is published. So there's no leakage between information, source, and public. That does not apply when you're answering questions in a situation like this. And all I would say is, I think there's a lot more to that scenario than meets the eye, but I am not going to be drawn further on this matter at this point. Watch this space, is all I'd say. And on that note, I'll say thank you very much for your questions. Do keep them coming in.
Well, thank you everybody, and we hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit the like button, subscribe and share with your friends. Thank you very much and goodbye.